Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to UnityQuickTips Tutorials, and this is another episode of Unity Quick Tips. Today's Unity Quick Tip is going to be introducing you guys to the differences between textures, materials, and shaders. So, just as a summary, textures are basically the image file itself, like JPEG, PSD, TIFF, GIF, PNG, all of those good things. Material is basically a particular file type that is unique to Unity, or at least in our case is unique to Unity, and basically kind of saves the recipe for how the surface of an object is going to look. And a shader is the code that basically the code that is used to determine the exact specifications of how on a technical level, how the look of the surface actually appears, but you don't really need to get into shaders. Unity has a bunch of default shaders that are available to you, and there's more than enough to start off with those, so you don't need to jump into how to make your own shaders right off the bat. So let's first talk a little bit more about textures. So, like I said, textures are the image file itself. So this can either be a JPEG, a PSD, a TIFF, a GIF, a PNG. There's probably a couple of other ones that I'm not thinking of right now. But Unity accepts a bunch of different image file types. Unity typically likes it when you keep your images square and you keep your number also square, if that makes sense. So basically, Unity likes the file sizes starting off with 2 by 2, and I don't think you can go down to 2 by 2. I think the smallest you can go down to is 16 by 16, maybe. But anyways, let's start with 16 by 16, and the next would be 32 by 32, 64 by 64, 128 by 128, 256 by 256, 512 by 512, 1024 by 1024, 2048 by 2048, and then there's one more that's even bigger, but I don't have that one memorized. But yes, those are the main file sizes that you want to keep your textures. And Unity has tools to help you resize them into those sizes if they're not already those sizes. Unity accepts all of these different file types, like I said, JPEG, PSD, and all of those different file types. And then what Unity does is it actually converts it into the file type that it likes the most. So you really do not need to worry about, like, performance optimization wise what type of files you're using. You should use whichever ones are most convenient for you. For some reason that might be JPEG, for some reason that might be PNG. Personally, I like to use PSTs. They're a little bit bigger file type, but I can go into Photoshop and then I can edit up the texture. I can edit it in Photoshop and do whatever adjustments I want, and then I click save, and then it automatically re-imports into Unity and takes all of those changes into account. So that's why I like to use PSD files personally. But yeah, I think that pretty much goes over what textures are. So, Unity accepts almost all file types. I already said that. Okay, so now let's talk about materials. So materials are basically a file type. I think it's .mat. No, I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. Ignore that. But anyways, materials are basically a file type, just like a prefab, just like a scene, just like, well, kind of like a texture, kind of like a script. Basically, in your project window, it is something that you can drag and drop and put into any file that you want. So yes, materials are basically a recipe for what the surface of an object is going to look like. And once you have that recipe in place and you decide exactly how you want to make the surface of any given object look like and what textures and what shaders you're going to be using with that material, you can take that material and you can drag and drop it and put it as a component. I think, yeah, as a component, or I don't know if it's technically a component, but it acts just like a component. You can put it as a component and drag and drop it onto other objects to make the surface of those objects look like that material. Now, you have to remember that your material is going to be the same throughout your entire project. So that means even between scenes, even between different objects, no matter what, if you edit your material, it's going to change that material throughout your entire project. So whatever you put that material on, like let's say you put on 20 different game objects that are totally separate, if you change the material on just one of those game objects, it's going to make that change across all of those game objects because your material is one file type, and when you edit it, you are editing that file, and that file is copy and pasted on everywhere, and it's all linked. And I will demonstrate that in Unity in just a second. So let's see. Oh, every material needs at least one shader. I mean, not at least, it needs one shader to work. So you take that material and you assign it a shader. So shaders, you can either have custom shaders that you either get from external sources like the asset store or just somebody on the internet. Or you can create your own shaders, and shaders are kind of like scripts. But even if you don't do any of those three things, Unity still has a really large handful of default shaders that are always going to be integrated into the Unity engine that you can always use. I'm going to go through a couple of those shaders in this episode, but later on I'm going to go over in more detail more of the more useful shaders that are available in Unity. Okay, so some of the shaders will need more than one texture. Take for example, bump diffuse. So bump diffuse, basically you give it one texture, and that is the image that it just puts on that particular game object. And then you give it the bump file, which is a normal map, which is another type of texture. I'm going to show you that inside of Unity. Basically, you just change one little option from texture to normal map, and then it turns pink and purple, and basically it's a bumpy map that you assign onto this shader, and then that basically is the information of how to make the surface of that object appear bumpy. So those would be the two different textures that you would give the bump diffuse shader. So then the material has the bump diffuse shader, two textures on it, and then there's a couple other settings like I believe just main color, and I believe that's the only other setting. You can also tile your textures and determine how they are tiled and kind of shift them around the object a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that makes up a material, and I think that's everything that I want to talk about. So let me open up Unity so I can show you a little bit of an example. So let me first go through textures and give you an example of a texture. Like, here's the texture that I was using for a chair. I have it highlighted right here, and then if I move over here, whoops, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. So as you can see here, we have a preview file of what that image looks like, and we have in the inspector a whole bunch of different things that we can do with this file. Like, here is where we can change the size of the file to anything we want. And then here is where we can change it between a texture and a normal map. And then we have a whole bunch of other options. We can, you might as well leave that on repeat sometimes. But yes, let me then go into materials and show you what a material looks like. So let's take, let's click revert. Here's the same chair material, so this is using the chair texture that I just showed you. There we go. So here we have, let me see, I want to scale that a little bit bigger. So here we can see the preview. We can change it into a square or a cylinder in like all of these different shapes, and we can see what it looks like on all of these different shapes. And then let me move my window back down so that you can see here is where in the material we can choose all of the different shaders that we have available. And then let's say if I wanted to change it to simply diffuse, the simplest shader that you have, now I can only assign it one texture, and then I can change the color of it with this window here. And that is the basics of a material. And then to create a new material, you just click on the folder that you want to put the material. Like, I'm going to put it inside of assets, and I click create, and then go down here to material. And then as you can see over here, we have a new material, and here are all of its parameters. So yes, that is pretty much how a material works. So I'm going to next show you how to create a shader. So this is what a custom shader looks like. It looks just like a script. When you double click on it, I believe it opens up in MonoDevelop, but creating your own personal shaders is a little bit advanced. I just want you guys to know that you have that file type available to you and what it looks like. So yeah, I think if we go into this, let me click on the material and then go in the inspector. I believe it should be somewhere in here under new shader. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure I am wrong. Yes, I am wrong. Okay, I think there's something special you gotta do in the code to make it show up in there. But yes, in other words, shaders are kind of advanced, and we will get... Actually, I don't think we will get into shaders in this channel. Shaders really aren't my thing, but yes, just want you guys to know that they exist. So hopefully this whole video clears up all of the differences between textures, materials, and shaders, and how the three of those work together. Oh, one other thing I guess I want to show you is let's create a cube, and then let's duplicate that cube so that then we have two cubes, and let's move back a little bit. So here we have two cubes, and then I'm going to drag and drop a material onto both of those. And then if I have one of these cubes selected, so as you can see I have it selected, so in the inspector right here, if I go totally messed up what I'm trying to do. If I go down here to the material and go down here and let's say I want to change it to a red color, now you would think that it would only change the color on this one game object because that's the game object that I have selected, as you can see right there. But in reality, if I change this to the color red, it changed on both of the game objects because I changed the material, and the material is the same throughout all of your project, no matter where it is. It's going to change every game object that you put that material on. So yes, I believe that is definitely everything you need to know about textures, materials, and shaders. So until my next episode, I'll see you guys later, and keep making games.